Great. And then let me see, if you could all put yourselves on mute for the keynote. We'll have plenty of time for conversations in the actual workshops. And I know everyone's got things going on during the day today, so feel free to stay on video. We'd love to see faces. It's always encouraging, but also just to keep this background sound down, to please stay on mute. All right, so an event like this couldn't be brought to you without the support and hard work of many people. First and foremost is our SEMAP staff, Shannon Hickey, our program coordinator, and James Lehner, our communications and outreach coordinator. Their hard work has made this conference possible for all of us, and they've done a marvelous job. This is one of the best organized conferences we've had, and all of this has been done without them ever having actually seen one of our SEMAP conferences. So this has been an amazing piece of work for everybody. I also want to thank the conference committee, Kendra Murray, Laura Smith, Melissa McKenna, Sarah Cogswell, and Sue Guiducci. Their experience and guidance were invaluable in creating this event. We also could not do this without our sponsors. We have some amazing sponsors today. First is NOFA. We're grateful for their sponsorship. NOFA is the Northeast Organic Farming Association. They represent farmers across the state and do excellent work in soil health, and hold some amazing conferences of their own. And they have also been a great role model and guide for us in our work in sharing their process and resources around equity and racial justice. Also, Edible South Shore and South Coast, they overlap our region almost directly, doing a lot of work promoting our farmers and businesses that support our local farmers. There is also grant funding that has helped keep this put this conference on, the buy local funding that is implemented through the Mass Department of Ag Resources, but part of the state legislative budget, which we're very grateful for. And also the USDA, the Agricultural Marketing Services, and the Beginning Farmer Program. And this is one of the first plugs you'll get throughout the day for survey data. So all of the grant funding that we get is loves to get survey data. So it's important to them, and it helps us improve our services. So if you will make time at the end of the day to fill out the survey form, your feedback is really crucial to us. We do have legislators in the room, I believe, to chance to say hello. In the chat is Senator Roush has done so. I believe Rep Schmidt is in the room or coming in the room. Yep, he is in there. Are there any other legislators that want to say hello in the chat? All right, well, we'll keep an eye out today. Our legislators have been great support for SEMAP. Oh, good, excellent. Derek Dunley is here from Rep Fiola's office. Rep Fiola has been great help for us in the Fall River area, working with getting food access in underserved communities. Excellent, all right. Next slide, please, Shannon. Great. So a lot of you are familiar with SEMAP and have been at previous conferences, but there are also many of you who are new to us. SEMAP is a buy local organization, a nonprofit, one of 9 across the state that represent distinct geographies. SEMAP's region is Bristol, Plymouth, and Norfolk counties. And you can, as you can see, we do a lot of different work, promoting farmers, supporting farmers, and promoting local food. We also do advocacy work for our local agricultural needs. So if you are in our region, we are your go-to for anything along those lines of promotion and technical assistance. If you're in another region, you have a buy local as well that you can reach out to, either for farmer support or to find local food. Next slide, please. So we at SEMAP are just beginning to look at our role in diversity and equity. In this early stage, we want to share this conference statement with you. We welcome feedback and encourage conversation on these topics. And what we have drafted is that SEMAP has recently begun the important and ongoing work of identifying our role in racial justice work. Recognizing the many gaps that currently exist in SEMAP's work as it pertains to these issues, we're looking to take a more active role in building an equitable and representative SEMAP community. We hope you will think about today's workshops with a racial justice lens. On our website, you will find a working equity statement prepared in consultation with SEMAP staff, board, and other ag stakeholders. We encourage your feedback at the link in the chat. Excellent. Just wanted to mention in the chat that staff from Senator Warren's office is here today as well. Thanks for the link, Shannon. Great. As we talk today about food and farming, I would like us to keep in mind the history of this land, and it is the food that is grown on it, and acknowledge the traditional territories we are on. The map of Southern New England shows, this map of Southern New England shows the First Nations that lived and still live on these lands. You can use the link in the chat to find your own region on the map, determine which Native tribes lived on this land before us, and learn about the vast and complex Indigenous history of these lands. Next slide, that's great. So these are the Zoom reminders and tech support. Today's tech support person is Shannon. She's doing a great job getting things going here with us and handled some nice background work to get all of this material ready. So make sure your name is correct and add your pronouns if you feel comfortable doing it. Be sure you're muted during the presentation, but feel free to share your video. Use the chat function throughout the day to ask questions, to network with other participants, share resources, and offer comments. We'd love to have you engage with this work. Try the raise hand feature when you'd like to ask a question during the question and answer.
And I'll just add, so we are recording, as Karen mentioned. If you don't want your face recorded, if you share your video but you stay on mute, you won't be in the recording at all. So we want to see your faces. We want to feel like we're in person as much as possible. So if you're comfortable with it, you know, even if you're seating in the greenhouse or doing dishes or whatever multitasking you're doing this morning, we would love to see your faces.
Great.
All right. So we're really excited to welcome our keynote speaker, Ray Archuleta. You might have guessed we're in different time zones, and that's what the confusion was this morning, but we're really excited to have him here. Ray is a farmer, a soil scientist, and the founder of the Soil Health Academy. He's got over 30 years of experience in soil science at NRCS, which has led him across the country. Ray is an expert on all things soil. Prior to that, Ray served with the Peace Corps in Guatemala as a livestock specialist. After his retirement from the NRCS in 2017, Ray founded Understanding Ag LLC and Soil Health Academy LLC. Ray also owns and operates a 150-acre farm near Seymour, Missouri, along with his wife and family. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Ray. We're really excited to have you here and excited to learn from you.
Thank you, and I appreciate it. And Shannon, thank you for saving me again. I'm pretty convinced that my wife's going to have to get me a T-shirt that says, "Please bring husband home if he gets lost," with my address, because I think that happens to me quite often. Shannon, could you please share that screen? Share screen, please. And then we can start. And we can get started. There we go. And have I been given the power? Yes, I have. Fantastic. Thank you. Let me see if I can get here. Get my screen's all set up here. Let's see. We'll do that one. Share sound. Okay. Okay. Make sure that everything. All my slides are visible. Can you just see one slide, folks?
We can.
Excellent. Good morning. I really love to share this information. I think I I've never been so excited in my whole life about agriculture until now. I'm going to start off real quick. Thank you for all showing up, and I really appreciate and humbled and honored to be before all you guys' presence. You know, when I have people come for a long distance just to come and learn, I realize there's two precious things for most humans. It's their money and their time, and especially their time. And when people are willing to spend money and spend their time, that really shows to me that they're really committed to learning. So thank every one of you. I appreciate that. I'm going to start off real quick. Folks, about 16, 17 years ago, I was working as a district conservationist in Oregon, lived in Idaho. I'll be honest with you, I really did not have hope for agriculture. I started to really hate agriculture. I started to hate farming because I saw no hope, because I really saw that the water was becoming more and more polluted, even though we have spent billions and billions of dollars. And the worst thing too, I saw that people weren't able to bring, the farmers weren't able to bring their sons or daughters back into the farm. And it bothered me. And I had a farmer who farmed 500 acres, prime agriculture acres in the Treasure Valley. A lot of water, limitless water, great climate, wonderful soils, and yet could not afford it. But now I have hope. I have hope because there's fantastic regenerative agriculture. And most people said, well, what is regenerative agriculture? Well, regenerative agriculture is like this, folks. I asked people from the audience, I said, ma'am, how does it feel to be married to that man? Well, it's sustainable. The audience starts to laugh. You notice how that word sustainable, you're just barely there. It's not that great. But regenerative agriculture is this, renewal. It's a renewal of heart and mind. And it's what our bodies do every day in the planet. It renews this, it's changing, it's life itself. And I'm excited about that. And so this is the type of agriculture that will change the world. It's that little butterfly will change the world, and it is happening as we speak. But the biggest issue, I will tell you, and the most difficult thing why regenerative agriculture has not split, it's going to take a long time. It's because we're going to have to deal with the most difficult thing to change on the planet is the human mind. It is very difficult to change our mindsets. It is mindsets and the social conditioning that happens for that mindset. If people don't understand what social conditioning is, and I see it in the local community, they've done studies where they have a group of monkeys and they put bananas, and as the monkeys try to get the bananas, they squirt them with a big hose and they condition them not to touch the bananas. And then the new monkey comes in and tries to go for the bananas. The other monkeys beat that monkey up because they don't want to get squirted. Social conditioning happens at home. Social conditioning happens at our job. It happens in the government. It happens where humans are together as a collective. Social conditioning is an absolute brutal aspect that happens. Case in point, when you started going to become an organic farmer in a conventional farming community, what happens? They beat the person down. When you first went to no-till, same thing happens. We have to understand it's the way we look at the world is the biggest issue. It's our mindset, it's our framework. It is a huge problem with our situation. So today I'm going to focus on just 4 things. I want to share with you that all is one, it's a collective. As I travel the whole country, I see this as a huge problem with the majority of our producers as I travel. I've been on hundreds and hundreds of operations from Canada, Mexico, the United States. I've been in every state 2 or 3 times, literally, and I still travel it. See, these are some of the issues that are still occurring with our producers in agriculture. Most people do not understand that all is one. Everything's connected. That's ecology. That's quantum physics. All this is connected. The Eastern cultures knew that for many, many years. The other one is the soil is alive. If farmers do not understand that the soil is alive, just like they are, they will never change their operation. It is alive, just like you and I. It breathes, it lives. It wants to be protected, it reproduces, it's alive. The third one is, this is very important to me because I never understood the goal of agriculture. When I left college, my goal was yield, 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 force nature, control it with chemicals and fertilizer, because that's the only way I can farm, it's the only way I can ranch, and besides, nature's against me. I'm gonna lose my sheep to all the predators. But I was not taught by one mentor. If I would have one professor, one teacher, one mentor said, no, Ray, your goal is to mimic nature, understand its design, its principles, its patterns, biomimicry, mimic life. It would have been a huge thing for me. And the last one, I realized that the top producers in the world have a different mindset. Their mindset, and I'll explain that later. Let's continue. Let's start off with the butterfly effect, how things are intimately connected. I realize now it is to be better read than, I'd rather be well read than well educated. The reason I say that is reading all types of books from different fields gives you a more holistic view of what we're dealing with. I definitely love the view of quantum physics, and I'm going to explain this carefully because this explains how everything's connected. I think the new science that we're going to learn more and more about life and biology is quantum physics. Classical physics is this. We've all been taught classical physics. You know, that we understand movements, trajectory of a bullet, locations, plain physics, that we can only be at one place at a time, gravity. That's classical physics. But quantum physics teaches us, man, particles can exist in more than one or two places. It can go through obstacles. It communicates from one location to the other. It's really what a lot of other cultures or Eastern cultures have thought, the collective of one, that all these forces are held together and it communicates to each other. I think a book that I would definitely recommend for everybody is Chaos. It is a fantastic book. It is by James Gleick, The New Science. And I wish that we would start teaching in our agriculture schools so to make them understand you are dealing with a collective of one, an absolutely elegant world. And the first one that really brought this to the surface was Ed Lorenzo. He was a brilliant mathematician, Dr. Lorenz, and a brilliant meteorologist. This is where he coined the term the butterfly effect. And the way it works is, in many versions of this, but can the movement of the wings of a butterfly and moving the molecules below with the flapping of the wings, can it create a tornado in Kansas? Can those movement of those air molecules create that kind of change? Term the butterfly effect. And the answer is yes. And let's show you how Dr. Lorenz came about. Back then, computers used to look like this. And Dr. Lorenz had 12 parameters that he ran through his model very consistently: barometric pressure, temperature, things that involve the climate. And he ran those 12 models. And the purpose of that model was, again, to predict climate. And it was one day in his lab that he decided to do another run and on his computer, and then he grabbed a cup of coffee or whatever the narrative explains. But something interesting happened. The computer, all the data was ran by 3 decimals. He ran it through 3 decimals. The computer did it through 6 decimals, but the printer, he set the printer for 3 decimals. And he said, well, all that 1 parts in 1,000 is not going to make a difference in the outcome of what the model predicted. But to his amazement, he found out that wasn't true. A tiny change, 1 part per 1,000, changed the outcome, whether you were going to get rain or whether you're going to get sunshine. He was shocked. He was startled that tiny variation could make a huge difference in the outcome of the model. That's why today, even with incredible satellites and running many runs of models, we could still not predict the weather. After 8 days, our weather predictions are worthless. I will say it again, they are worthless because tiny variations in climate temperature change the whole outcome of the weather. Same thing happens in our lives, folks. All of us have experienced butterfly effects in our lives. I can tell you one real quick. In 6th grade, my dad told me, you're going to a private school. Me going to that private school versus going to the public school had a total different trajectory in my whole life. It determined whether I was going to go to college or not. Marrying my amazing wife that keeps me in order and keeps everything structured, she determined whether I could be here today or determined that I can be gone and she can take care of that farm and ranch. That's the butterfly effect. Butterfly effect happens in our personal life, but it also happens in the natural system. Also, please understand, all of us have been not only social conditioned, but we have all been conditioned to reductionist science. Every one of us. We picked up a majority of our science from the Western Greco-Roman reductionist science. It is powerful science. Please don't misunderstand me. We need it. But reductionist science is, we tend to look at the world very mechanicistic. This is a drawing back in the 1662. We try to make it simple. We kind of make it look like a machine, but we reduce nature into little tiny particles. We reduce it. It's a problem. We all have to realize we are a product of that. We teach it in high school, we teach it in college, we teach it all over, but it's not very good for when we're dealing with ecological and biological systems like the human body. When you go to the doctor, what does the doctor do? He reduces you to the liver doctor, to the eye doctor. He partitions you out. And then we wonder why we have a hard time dealing with chronic disease. Let me show you another byproduct of reductionist science. Look, as I travel the whole country, what I see. Bare soil, and this is taken when I take pictures crossing the country. Look what reductionist has done. We treat nature like a machine. Look at New York. Look at Georgia. Look at Texas. Look at California. Why isn't that all those farms covered with green? Why is the land not covered? Look what we're doing in our urban areas. And we say, and most people say, but Ray, humans don't impact the climate. I tell people, do you not understand? We can't have climate without plant and soil, period. If we took all the plants out of this planet, you know what we would have? Ice and rock. They are critical for climate. The living plant is critical. Look at what our reductionist has done. We don't understand connectedness and life. We don't embrace it. Now, here again, look at Colorado in 2014. This is April 1935 when our agency was designed. NRCS used to be called Soil Erosion Service. Now it's called NRCS. Look at that. I tell people, look at this. You know that that was all a organic system. This was all organic. There was no chemicals since 1935. None. 1935, there wasn't no chemicals. That was organic. That's why I'm saying it's not about organic. It's not about no-till. I tell my no-tillers, you spray too much. Organic people, you till too much. It's not about any of that. It's about biomimicry, mimic life. That's what this is about. Look at this in Kansas. This happened in December, folks. This is December. This is Dust Bowl situations going on. Don't we have the best universities in the world? Aren't we spending billions of dollars? I've worked 30 years in the agency to stop this, and we're still here. Billions. So what's going on? Aren't we the best country in the world, the most educated? The problem is us. It's the way we look at the world and the way we teach. Look at the reductionism again. Look at the producer on the left. Does he have a relationship with the soil? Does he understand the collectiveness of one? How about this farmer on the right? What's the difference between these two producers? Their framework of thought. One understands the soil's alive and he's feeding it and protecting it to the last moment. The other looks at the soil as dirt. Look at our reductionism, putting nature into machine. We did that as a collective, as a society as one, because some people will blame the farmer. No, all of us did that. We all wanted cheap food. A migration of people left rural America and went into the city. We as a collective created that. That's why I get upset when people want to blame the producer. We taught this in school at the university. This was based on science. This was a science. But we're saying that premise was wrong. I don't care how good your science is. If it's on the wrong premise, wrong outcome. This is the science it should always been. The ecology, agroecology, the connectedness of one. This is why a lot of young people don't want to eat meat, because they see their food raised like this. This was science. I tell people be very, very careful with science. It's about the premise of science. I question science now. If it does not glorify the human body, and it does not glorify the creation, the design, I say, go back into your lab and don't bother me because you don't have it right. This is the right science. I only met one non-biased scientist in my life. They were dead. We are all biased. I'm going to tell you my bias. I was taught here on the left, I am biased to this. Biomimicry, mimic life. This is the right science. Folks, this is what's happening to our soils globally. The soil is naked because it does not have the plant covering. It's hungry because the plant feeds it. Ancient people used to call the soil the mouth of the soil. It's thirsty because it has no cover. It's thirsty because the water is evapotranspiring. It's running off. It's running a fever because it's too hot. Soil surface get to 100, 130, 150 degrees. Latent heat's going off, sensible heat. And what it's doing is pushing the rain clouds away, creating a disruption of water vapor in the atmosphere. And this is creating a lot of our climatic issues. People keep blaming CO2. That's only part of it. We have too much bare ground. We have over 38% of our planet is uncovered, folks. 38%. That's too much. And so most people don't understand how the small water cycle works. Most of our 40% of our rain comes from inland. Plants evapotranspiring. 60% comes from the ocean. This small water cycle has been disrupted. The small water cycle is connected to the large water cycle. Again, not looking at things from a reductionist point of view. And so please understand this is what's happening in our planet. And it's a problem. Now, because there's so much sensible and latent heat, we're creating these huge vapors. One of the largest gas in the atmosphere we never talk about because we put so much focus on CO2 is water vapor. Water vapor holds heat energy in. The Scientific American had an incredibly good article showing that that's why we're having these rivers and these rivers in the atmosphere that are just dumping huge amount of water. Again, too much bare ground and not enough vegetation. I want the balance of gases, CO2, water vapor, and it can only be done with the soil and plants, period. And then I was going to show this to you, but I don't really have much time. But I just want to show you that this model, look what happens in March and April in our atmosphere. This scientist was talking about the CO2 gas, thinking it was just coming from factories and that. The red is CO2, but what he forgets that we are doing huge amounts of tillage on hundreds and hundreds of millions of acres in March and April and preparing the seedbed. We do, and releasing copious amounts of CO2 into the atmosphere. But look what happens here in June. how it disappears when we start having corn and soybean and living plants. Look how quickly the planet responded. That is mind-boggling. We did that and kissed the ground, because when I saw that, I go, wow, we keep missing it and understanding agriculture has a huge impact on how we can heal it. We can heal the planet very quickly, and I'll show you down the road. But this is what's happening as we travel. We're getting more and more flooding because the soils are tilled, they have no aggregation, no infiltration, and the water runs off. And we're having huge amounts of water being dumped. And then people say, well, you remember those forest fires? They blamed the Forest Service. Well, I'm here to tell you, Forest Service may be partially to blame, but it cannot be put all on them. I will argue, does it matter the way we farm in the Midwest and leaving all that ground bare? Does that affect California's forest? Yes. The butterfly effect of how we farm and leaving all that bare surface impacts the way the forest and why they're so dry. You can't manage a forest if you don't get the rain, and you can't do controlled burns because the whole thing will come down. We are altering the climate because it's not covered enough. And how would we expect them to manage? It's easy to blame everybody, but once you understand connectedness on how everything matters, so it matters how we farm that 1 acre that we have. It matters, or 2. Another thing that's a huge thing is look at the cost of inputs that is causing farmers. 1926, look at here. Since the 20s, farming has not been a very profitable thing. Look at the income of farmers in 2016. Where's the money going? A majority of that money is going to corporate America. The fertilizer, the chemicals, the tractors, the tool makers. It goes to all the tool makers, because when you farm against nature, it takes a lot of energy to work against her. Am I against the tool makers? No, that's not what I'm getting at. Farmers are the poorest millionaires I know. They're worth millions, but the money goes to everywhere else, but it does not go to the farmer. This is why farming has one of the largest high suicide rates than any other career. Farmers and ranchers have a high suicide rate. Why? The stress. Hey, when I worked for a government employee, as a government employee, the government provided my laptop. They provided everything for me. I got there. Farmers have to have tractors, equipment, huge amounts and millions of dollars of infrastructure they have to maintain. It is huge and difficult to be a farmer trying to maintain a living. It's complex. And then now we have a dying of rural America. Our farm programs, our system of agriculture is causing more farm poverty. We're causing more poverty in rural America. I see a dying of rural America. And people say, well, how does the farm programs cause more poverty? Isn't it supposed to be an influx of money? Well, Conservation Reserve Program was a great idea. It's we would put a lot of the land back to grass with marginal farms. But they forgot to understand that over 50% of the land is not owned by the local community or the farmers. A lot of the money is going to other parts of the country. It doesn't go to the local community. And it makes it very, very hard for young farmers to compete against CRP. It is almost impossible for a young farmer to get into farming. So it all stems back to this. Paradise lost. Who would have thought that all our soils throughout the country, throughout the globe was once like this? Please understand the majority of our soils came from the forests and the prairies. Through the last 50 to 100 years, we have changed it to this. This was the once the same soil. Our poor rotations, our reductionist science. We now have degraded soils. This soil used to be the same soil, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's talk about the power of life. I tell farmers, please understand now, this is compaction, right, folks? That's compaction. Farmers start to laugh. I say, you know what the first thing farmers will want to do for that compaction? Bring a tillage machine, let's break it up. How in the world does that plant survive compaction? Folks, that plant makes association with Arbusca mycorrhizae. Bacteria break rock down. These plants release gentle acids. They can get the minerals out of the soil. Without plant and biology, microbes, the planet is just geology, folks. So without biology is geology. Plants can do that. So the most powerful thing you can do on your farm is put a living plant. I tell producers, this is what you deal with. This is life. This is our soils. What an amazing creatures. 25% of all biodiversity comes from those organisms. This is the connectedness that I was talking about. Ecology teaches the connectedness of this house. This is where I missed in college. I went to graduate school for soil science, but they didn't teach soil ecology, the critters on top, critters on the bottom. Over 70% of all insects make their life on the top 1 inch of the soil. So the more you till it, the more you spray it, the more you disturb it, the more you write a check, the more you go broke, the more you give your money to corporate America. That's the issue. But again, I have hope. Now I know the template, biomimicry. My farm emulates the prairie and the forest. We got the principles of soil health from here. Prairies always covered, living root. They all have animals, living organisms. People do not understand. We will not heal the planet without the diversity of life, and cattle are part of that elegance. All of it needs to be together. I'll show you in a while. It would have been great if I would have read this scripture in the Bible before I went to graduate school. Ask the beast and they will teach you, the birds of heaven. The creation has been telling us all the time, mimic the design, follow it. Didn't ask you to change it. It asked you to mimic it. The Eastern cultures, the Bible comes from an Eastern culture. They knew this years and years ago, thousands of years ago. We design cover crops that look like this, folks. The design and patterns of the architecture. Look at the roots. This is what I designed my cover crop mixes to look like. Look what we're doing now on millions of acres throughout the United States, mimicking the architecture of the prairie and the forest, bringing life. You know how I know a regenerative farm? I can hear it. I can see it. Insect life. That's regeneration. How about these producers? Rick Clark and Dan DeSutter. They are changing and challenging organic farmers all over the country. Rick farms 7,000 acres organic no-till with very little tillage to none. Dan DeSutter, 3,000 to 5,000 acres. And Charlie and another farmer, Cheese Right. These guys together work as a collective, and they're trying to make it figure out how to do it without disturbing. No more chemicals, no more fertilizer, and way reduction in tillage and elimination. This is how they're doing it. Notice they are rolling cereal rye with a roller, and they're planting corn, soybean right into it. No chemicals, no tillage at all. Just a thick mat of cereal rye. And they terminate the cereal rye at the antithesis stage. Cereal rye dies very quickly without using herbicide. It's all about timing and management. Look what Rick saves now, $600,000 to $800,000 a year. No more chemicals, no more, and reduction in tillage. It makes a huge difference. Look how he does this. This is, notice most organic farmers will use a little tillage there. That is little miniature lawnmowers run on hydraulic, little blades. So it does not touch the soil surface. Again, look how beautiful that is on thousands of acres. What do we get later? We have this beautiful mat of cereal rye. Where did I learn this from? Ray Stiers, North Carolina, since the 80s, and he's been doing rolling cover crops. creating that skin, keeping the soil cool, feeding the soil, protecting the plant from rain and erosion, feeding the microbes. Beautiful, excellent weed control. We're doing this on tomatoes. We're doing this on pumpkins. We're doing this on cotton. This is spreading on the whole planet. We're doing it on a small scale. Look at this lady doing it with a 2x4, killing the soil rye. How much horsepower do you need? 1 or less. It's amazing. Now look what I did. This is my daughter and my very unhappy wife. We're planting cover crops seed. She's my down pressure. She's good to this. I planted that, and here's my roller. My daughter's diesel Jetta to offset I wanted to offset my carbon footprint. I killed that rye with my daughter's Jetta. No herbicide. My lawnmower gave up. That's parked right there. And because I believe in animal integration, the principles of animals, there's my Rhodesians. I did that for you folks because most farmers says, but I don't have the equipment. I hear this little whining in the background. I don't have the equipment. I can't do it. So I did that on purpose, just to show you what we can do. That was my yard in North Carolina when I lived there. Now my wife and I, because of time, I use wood chips for my garden now. She's planting tomatoes right here. I killed the grass, did not use a rototiller. I used the grass, the wood chips, about 8 inches of wood chips, smothered the weeds, and I plant my tomatoes and I dig all the way into the soil. You can do this called organic no-till gardening. I don't have enough time to explain it, but we dig the hole all the way into the soil and put the plant in the soil, not in the wood chips, and then cover it back with wood chips. I hardly have any weeds. And a person that travels like I do, great garden. And those microbes and the fungi break the wood chips down and feed the plant. I rarely use any fertility at all, just lime. Okay? People say, well, Ray, how are we going to feed the world? People throw that in my face all the time. The Darvis family in Pasadena, they have 1/10 of an acre. 1/10 of an acre, and they make $40,000 a year. They produce 6,000 pounds of vegetables. And people say we can't feed the world. That's not true. 70 to 80% of the world is fed with small farms, period. Brian O'Hara, I buy his book, folks. I got to be on Brian's place. He's probably one of the better organic no-till farmers in the country. Buy his book. Look at the kind of money, 100,000 plus he makes per acre on 3 acres. This man is fantastic. This man knows soil biology. I've only been impressed with maybe 5 or 10 people of their soil knowledge, and he's one of them. Brian is amazing. Another group, Paul and Liz Kaiser, 3 total acres. They are also impressive. Look at their garden. Look how impressive they are. They know their stuff too. Absolutely impressive. Those 2 have been very impressive as I travel the whole country. And they farm very similar. And their soil health scores were very similar. How can that be? With the new Haney test, I found that their scores were almost the same. Look how they plant.
Video of changing over beds. So I'll just show this to you. It's 45 seconds. This is, I think it was 3 employees, 4 85-foot beds, and about 47 minutes from beginning to end. You're going to see right here.
Look how quickly they plant. I want to hire them.
So cutting out the crops, got the loppers on the left. You've just got harvest knives over on the right.
And it's all feeding our compost pile.
Yep.
Or piles. We have about 4 to 8 compost piles at any given time on the farm.
Pulling off the irrigation, putting on the organic fertilizers, putting on compost. Because those crops had been there
That's
over
about
winter.
a quarter to a half inch of compost going down. It looks like more. It's only a quarter to a half inch. It's enough that you can't see the soil underneath. Transplants
And then
going
transplanting right back in. Coffee
Coffee
break.
break. And you can see on the left, we've got the cauliflower romanesco with the lettuce intercropped in between. These beds here, it was a different cauliflower with the lettuce in between. And then the right-hand one was the same, actually, all 4 of them.
Yep.
And watering in,
Look how quick. You know, folks, you know what's amazing to me? People will not go and pay to go to a school with Paul and Elizabeth. They won't come to a school. They won't come to a class. They'll complain for an $800 or $500 school, but yet they'll go buy a $100,000 tractor, or they'll go buy a piece of equipment, and yet they won't educate themselves to change their lives. It's just amazing to me. Now let me take you to Las Cruces. I went to college here, grew up here in the northern part. Las Cruces, to give you a perspective, it gets so hot down there, folks, that you can throw an egg during the summer on the top of the sidewalk and you can fry an egg. Brutal. Maybe 6 to 11 inches of rain throughout the year, intense heat. This is the way I was taught that we should raise. This is what I was taught in college. Science. This was the science at that time. Their understanding, their interpretation of the science. You got to leave that ground bare. Those pecans are going to steal. If I put any cover there, you're going to steal water and nutrients. It's about competition. It's all about yield, because I was taught it's all about yield. That's what I was taught. Now I teach this. We now cover the land, the pecans and the orchards like this with diverse multi-species mixes, permanent grasses, or you can do the mixes. Now, Josh Bowman is bringing sheep in there. Now the yields have stabilized. Less water use, less fertilizer. You're keeping the soil surface cool. Those plants are communicating with the pecans underground, sharing resources, water, nitrogen, nutrients, creating habitat for the beneficials. This is the way that we should be farming. Oh no, but we're going to steal from our yield. Total misunderstanding of the system. Now let's check, and we're wrapping it up here, getting close to the end. And I said, look, folks, I knew that we could fix agricultural land. I really believe we can fix agricultural land very quickly. But I was perplexed growing up in New Mexico, growing up in the Rockies, and I would drive through New Mexico to go see my parents, and I still do that because my parents are still alive. And when I go from Missouri to Oklahoma, through Texas and New Mexico, I just want to cry. Just cry. I said, God, how are we going to heal that land? I don't know how we're going to heal it because there's no, what are the cows are going to eat? What's the vegetation? How are we going to fix this? This is incredible. How are we going to fix this? It wasn't until I went to Chihuahua, Mexico 3 years ago, and I've been there 4 times now, and I'm going to show you the butterfly effect, how one human can change the thought process, and we could start a tornado of change, of healing. Let me give you some perspective. I was born in 1961. This is what New Mexico State grazing lands used to look at one time. New Mexico State has one of the largest land holdings of grazing land than any other university. Okay, this is what I grew up seeing. Folks, California, Nevada, Arizona, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Oregon, Eastern Oregon look like this. Half of our country is becoming desertified, and it's moving to the east. The bare ground. This used to be a large Anasazi Indian ruins. I grew up 2 hours south of that. Largest Indian ruins in North America. If you read the book Collapse, Dr. Jared Diamond talks about how the Anasazis deforested that area, made their cities too big, collapsed, and they had to move. Does it sound familiar? Most people say, well, only Europeans do that. No, humans do that. People forget that the whole Saudi Arabia was once vegetated. They found elephant tusks under the sands of Saudi Arabia. The whole planet was vegetated, folks. Let me show you to prove my point that I believe that savannas, forests, prairies, I don't think deserts existed. That's my own personal experience. And let me show you to prove my point. Folks, the butterfly effect, one person impacting all of us. This is Jesus Almeida, graduate at New Mexico State. He is not only dual citizen, American and Mexican. And Alejandro has got his master's in the United States, computer science. He's also dual citizenship. Jesus owns 25,000 acres. So does Alejandro. Gabe, my buddy and my co-founder of Understanding Ag and Soil Health Academy, and Juan Pablo. This is one. And then why do I have the picture of Alan Savory here? Alan impacted all of us. I read Alan's book in 2000, 2005, 2006. I had it bought. I listened to him. I said, he makes sense. Pissed everybody else in the room, but it made sense to me because I wasn't so conditioned under range management. The range people were all upset. Alan was impacted by Jesus. Jesus went all the way to Albuquerque, dragged his dad to come to Alan Savory's. From that point, they changed their ranch. What did Alan provide? A holistic framework on how to look at the planet. That's what Alan did. And then he also, Gabe also went to his schools. Gabe's an excellent rancher. He impacted Gabe. So when I went to Gabe's ranch and I read Alan's book, changed me completely. Then I knew I was way off. Isn't that interesting? And yet, a bunch of scientists want to dismiss Alan. Let me show you what has happened. 600 cow-calf dairy, about 6 to 11 inches, 4th generation ranch. I grew up here. Our families have been here for 500 years. I went to college here. Alejandro's ranch is 5 hours south of here from El Paso. 25,000 acre ranch. Let's give you some ecological context. Picture from Alejandro. Notice the Apaches. What do you see in the foreground? Yucca and grass. It was a grassland. It was grass. If you look at the Catholic Church, they have a lot of diary from the priests showing that the grass was as tall as the stirrup of a horse. This is what it is now. Arizona, New Mexico, if you drive from Albuquerque all the way to El Paso, this is what you see. Millions and millions of acres like this. Bare, hot ground, giving off latent and sensible heat. In fact, when you get off the paved road to Alejandro's, it's 4 hours of dirt road that looks like land like this. That land there used to be called the Garden of Eden. That was once the Garden of Eden, ladies and gentlemen. So how did we change it? Alejandro gets no government help. They have no NRCS. They have no universities helping them. They broke the farm and they don't get cost share. 300 paddocks. They built 300 paddocks on that 25,000 acre ranch. They give 12 months to a whole year to 6, maybe even 16 months, depending on the rain, of rest. So they'll move the animals like buffalo, group them up in a 200 acre field and move them all over the ranch. They move the ranch daily, more than you imagine. I'll tell you how many times they move it. But it always wasn't peachy. When they first started off, they killed cows. They made a lot of mistakes. In fact, this is a picture of their neighbor's cows. Because this is the vision I had. How are we going to feed these cows when there's nothing to eat? Because this is how the cows would look. This is why I believed Alan, but I didn't know how it would work. It wasn't until I went to Alejandro's ranch I understood what happened, how they're doing it. This is Alejandro's dad's ranch. His ranch, he's 85 years old. That grass was not planted by Alejandro, his dad. That came on his own. Hoof action, manure, urine, grouping the animals like buffalo, that was not planted, ladies and gentlemen. That came up on its own. I'll show you how it worked. Another thing that's beautiful about the ranchers in Mexico, they work together. They build these groups. In the United States, we die by ourselves. We don't communicate with our neighbors. We don't build community of change. What they do is they work together as a collective. They critique each other. They challenge each other. This is the neighbor that's not part of the group. We are mimicking the buffalo. This is the way I run my sheep on my place. We group them in one group. We move them and we break up the paddocks. We do biomimicry. It's not the number, it's the timing. Most people have blamed a cow for the problems of the desertification. It was not the cow, it was the how. We will not heal the planet without herbivores. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen, because the grass, the microbe, and the cow and the manure are connected, period. This is how we do it. This is how they're doing it. They take one part of the ranch that's got grass, they move the animals during the rainy season, hoof action, manure and urine, move the animals, disrupt the soil, move them back. You can only do that if you have the fencing and the watering infrastructure. There's a great paper called Mobile Link Species. Cows are mobile links that connect patches of the ecosystem from one or to the other. Genes are transported, manure, resources from one area to the other. That's what the planet does. The software of the planet is life, insects, animals, plants, organisms. They stop this planet from being a biological desert. Look at the cow. That is seed on the face of the cow. Seed is transported through on the hide, on the manure, on the hoof. By the way, just type mobile link and you can find, I think there's a good research paper, I should have had it there, but great research paper. It's talking about how bats, bees, they're mobile links. They connect organisms to organisms. Cow is one of them. Look at the drinking troughs they have all over. They build these, look at the fence they do. One hot wire, that's it, one hot wire. Pole every 150 feet. Look at the drinking troughs, amazing. They design those on their own. No government help, no cost share. They use the Tarahumara natives, cowboys. They move cows 800 times a year. They move those cows twice a day. They move them from paddock to paddock. Let me show you how it's done. This was just taken in October with a drone footage. The cows move so quickly because they're very happy to get to the next paddock. No, I'm just kidding. I speeded up the footage for you. Look how they did this. Two cowboys. That was it. Two cowboys did this. $800 times a year. They do that, folks. Alan providing the holistic framework. Ratchers got the ideas and the concepts and made it work. Look what happens. This is 2006. Look at that picture. Look how the vegetation starts to kick in. Look at that. And then look at this. I took that picture in October. Look what happened. How? The power of life, the change and the understanding of the person. We took that drone footage. I am seeing now islands of hope, islands of grass. This was taken in October. If this would have been taken in the summer, it'd be green. We are flying drones above us, and this is Alejandro and I talking about. I saw grass in the middle of the desert. I have hope now, folks. I have hope that we can heal our planet very quickly, quicker than I imagined. Look at this photo taken from Alejandro. This is Alejandro's ranch on this side. This is a neighbor's ranch. This is an alarm from at his ranch showing he's getting rain on his ranch. One of the persons that taught me so much is Masanobu Fukuoka. I read all his books. His books were so impressive. He wrote, it was in an American desert that I suddenly realized that rain does not fall from the heavens. It comes from the ground. Desert formation is not due to the absence of rain, but the rain ceases to fall because the vegetation has disappeared. Folks, what brings the rain are plants and trees. It's that evapotranspiration, the cooling. Plants do that. It's not just about CO2. CO2 is less than 3% of the gases that we're talking about. Our soil is naked, hungry, thirsty, and running a fever. I told Secretary Vilsack, I said, Secretary Vilsack, if we can do one thing now, one thing, let's cover the land. And if we could drive from California into North Carolina, and can you imagine in the fall and the spring, our cropland would be covered? That would be huge. Folks, this is my definition of regenerative agriculture. Wrapping it up with the last couple of slides. Regenerative agriculture is a journey for life. It's a journey for the rest of your life of learning. It is a change of your heart and mind on how you relate to the natural system, how you love it, how you nurture it, how you emulate the design, how you work with it. Do you know who brought biology into agriculture? It was the ladies. It was the women researchers. That's why the women are so awesome. And I was told to tell you that because I have 3 daughters and my wife. But the reality, the truth is, men are nurturing. I nurtured 3 daughters. But the moment we get behind a tractor, all nurturing disappears. It seems like we go crazy, the men. So if we were to cost share anything, it would be a tranquilizer gun to give to the wife so that when the man goes out there and wants to till and go spray, bring him into the house, chill out. What are you going to do? Are you going to do something that's nurturing? Do you understand the connectedness? Do you know that's one? What are you going to do with that event? Are you going to cause more damage? What are you going to do? This, to give you an example, here's a picture of Russell Hidrick. A lot of critiques, a lot of people have been very critical about regenerative agriculture, saying we're going to lose yield, we're going to lose a lot of money. We cannot afford to do regenerative agriculture. This is Russell Hidrick, North Carolina. That young man has only been farming for 10 years. He's in his early 30s. When he called me, what an impressive young man. What makes Russell stick out? And why was he such a good farmer? He's very good with the details. He learns, he asks questions. He's a farmer scientist. And he didn't grow up farming, picking up bad examples. He didn't learn from his family about farming and ranching. He didn't pick up the wrong paradigms. He learned to mimic nature. This young man in 2016 won North Carolina's dryland corn yield contest. 318 bushel corn. The irrigated was 319. How do you do it? No-till, cover crops, no fungicides, no insecticides, just 1 or 2 application of herbicide. He has eliminated all those and he's getting more and more into organic no-till. In 2022, he set North Carolina's historical dryland soybean yield, 117 bushel per acre. You can't do it with regenerative ag. That's what we've been told. Regenerative agriculture, folks, is the infusion of agroecology. What is agroecology? Bringing more ecology into the agro ecosystem. Another thing I want to say something really quick to make people understand. When I have a lot of people talking about they want to get rid of all the chemicals and tillage right away, I smile and I look at them and I said, ma'am, sir, you don't understand. Unless you cannot get people off these chemicals right away, their farm will collapse. Their soils are addicted to these chemicals. My father-in-law died at 61 years old. He was a chronic smoker and a functional alcoholic. He stopped, collapsed, killed them. We cannot get our producers off right away. It's going to take time. The soils are addicted to these products. It's going to take time and understanding, and that bridge is called agroecology, bringing ecology into the system so that we wean them. Do you know Rick Clark didn't start going from conventional? Rick Clark went from conventional to no-till and covers, then to organic no-till. It is a process. Took 15 to 20 years. Russell did it less than 10. The last 2 slides. Folks, it's all about mindset. It is all mindset. Do you have a growth mindset or are you a fixed mindset? Russell is a growth mindset. He does not give up. He doesn't care what the neighbors think about it. People with fixed mindset do not like to be critiqued. They take it personally. They take it personally. They don't want to be corrected. Growth mindsets look at failure as an opportunity. They look at it as an opportunity. Some of the best farmers in the world, they study, they're givers, they have a growth mindset. When you have a growth mindset, you will do whatever it takes to pick up the skills. Then you have the skills, then you use the tillage and the chemicals correctly. Correctly. The problem right now in agriculture, we are killing ourselves with our tools. Too much tillage, overhaying, over application of pesticides and insecticides and fungicides. Again, the last slide. Folks, we do not understand the collectiveness in the relationship that we're all connected. Everyone is connected. We don't understand how one person, that little butterfly effect, can change the whole world. One proper mindset, one person that mentored you and taught you the right premise of science. The correct science was to mimic nature. She is beautiful, she is elegant, she functions. The creation is awesome. That was the premise that it should have been, not to alter it genetically, not with our gene splicing, not to control it, not to force it. Love it, understand it, nurture it. Last one, I already told you the mindset of regenerative farmers. They're givers. They're willing to change. They don't care what the neighbors think about them. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for having me speak. I have hope now. I'm excited about agriculture. Years ago, I had no hope. Now I have hope. And I hope all of you have hope. And I love this young generation that's coming up, because like my daughter, who's only 28 or 29, she says, Dad, I don't want just to have a job. I want to have a job that makes a difference. That's what I love. Thank you, folks, for having me on. And I hope you have an awesome conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray, for your time today, for sharing all of your knowledge and your wisdom with us. We appreciate the time. We will probably follow up with some questions in the chat and hope that you can answer them sometime during the week.
Sure.
Yeah, we are going to need to get on to our next session. So,
thank you.
Yeah, there's lots.
Thank you so much, Ray.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hope you guys have a great conference.
Thanks. Everyone will see on the screen right now ways to stay in touch with Ray and his organizations. He's on Facebook at both the Soil Health Academy and Understanding Ag, and you can go check out his great work there. Also be assured that all of the great book recommendations that Ray gave during that talk will be in the follow-up email. So if you missed writing them down, you will get them. And be sure to leave your questions in the chat now, but also there will be space on the survey at the end of the day to add your questions, and we'll make sure Ray gets them.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks so much, Ray.
Thank you.
So we had planned to do a quick little feedback session in our break time, but we had such good conversation with Ray, we didn't want to cut that short. So we'll be postponing this little feedback session towards the end of the day. But there's a cool incentive. You get a jar of honey from They Keep Bees, which is based out in Western Mass in Montague, if you participate. But we'll make sure you have more information about that as the day goes on. And now we'll get right into our next sessions. So you'll notice that the time is a little bit wonky. We'll still try and get a full hour out of these next sessions because we've got some great ones lined up, and all the themes that Ray was talking about, you know, in terms of biomimicry and regenerative ag will come up in all of these sessions. So if you are interested in the prison gardens session, strategies for therapy and job training, you can just stay in this Zoom room here. We have Erica Rumbley presenting for us today. There's Erica. If you are interested in our soil panel, understanding soil health for better production and sustainability, you can go ahead and join Zoom room B, which I will be putting in the chat as soon as I can find it. And then if you are interested, oh, there, James has it. Perfect.
Thank you, James.
And then if you're interested in our workshop on supporting native bees and other beneficials through habitat on farms, you can go ahead and join Zoom room C. Thank you guys so much for coming, and we hope that you'll stick around for all of our great workshops today.